Thank you, Kevin. Now, before I introduce our final speaker of WEC 2014, I want to acknowledge the team that helped put together this next presentation. You'll notice some really terrific graphics across the whole stage that support this keynote message. They were provided by Kindle Communications, and we thank them for that. We really do. You'll enjoy them. Scott Schenker is the General Manager of Events and the Production Studios at Microsoft. He's also the founder of Janus Dialogues, a blog that looks at the impact of social, political, economic, and technical trends on experience marketing. Scott believes there is magic in discovery and innovation. However, the process of discovering and innovating is not magical. It comes from observing what others are doing, tapping into the collective imaginations of empowered and engaged individuals, and embracing the fringe for new norms. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Scott Schenker. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. Thank you so much to MPI and everyone for allowing me to spend a little bit of time with you here today. There is nothing more difficult than the introduction of a new way of things and a new order of things. Machiavelli said this in a letter to a prince a few hundred years ago, and it's still very much true today. It's also very true that if you're not changing, if you're not innovating, if you're not introducing a new order of things while others are, you're falling behind. So as the last session, and the thing that stands between you and your evening tonight, I wanted to spend a little bit of time sharing with you a few thoughts about innovation, discovery, connecting ideas, and solving problems creatively. You've heard from many that this is what you need to be doing. You've heard from great leaders about the importance of being creative, about innovating, about thinking. So what I wanted to do today was try and talk a little bit about how that can be done. So let me start with 4 or 5 key contexts here. First of all, big ideas are not big ideas because they cost a lot of money. Big ideas are not big ideas because they involve big risk. They are not big ideas because they are a significant departure from legacy or from tradition. They are big ideas because they have a large impact on the objective or the experience, or they increase the relevance and value to your audience or to you as the host of your programs. They are big ideas because they have a positive impact on the budget. And they are big ideas if they do all of these things and more. The best measure of a big idea is its obviousness. You've all heard a number of people, yourselves have said, the number of people who say, this is so obvious I should have thought of this myself. That's the obviousness of an idea. But obviousness does not by any means mean that it is easy to develop. Big ideas seem simple, they take an awful lot of work to develop. And this brings me to context number 2. Innovation doesn't come solely from creative or strategic people, but from creative and strategic processes. The secret of successful creative and strategic people is that they have a process, or more than one, that they use. Even brainstorming itself is an idea, and a very big one at that changed the norms and introduced a new way of thinking. Brainstorming, ideation, was introduced by Alex Ashbourne, the O in BBDO advertising, back in 1963, in a book that he called Applied Imagination, where he laid out the argument for and the process of working in groups to develop new ideas. Now, this was a very disruptive and controversial concept at the time. It was fringe thinking in and of itself at that time. When a book came out, creative directors typically worked independently, took their ideas then to a creative lead and brought them forward. The concept of working together in groups required Alex to overcome the laws of resistance. And if you go to Janus Dialogues, there's a whole write-up on the laws of resistance that you'll get when you try to change things. Osborne had to prove that diversity of the group was actually beneficial. Well, this may sound strange today, but he had to disprove myths that certain people, based on education or economics, even gender, were less creative than other people. Brainstorming is now common in an industry unto itself. It's something that all of you have participated in at some form or another, and something you should do more and more regularly. There are now books, training, even entire organizations to assist in managing the brainstorming process. Yet the best of all of these remain loyal to Osborne's theories of ideation. They're very simple. Focus on quantity, not quality. Withhold criticism. Welcome unusual ideas, and combine and improve ideas. That brings us to number 3. People don't always know what they want. Certainly it is important to know your audience when innovating or adjudicating new ideas. It is their needs and wants matched to those of the host, which should be the objectives for any event. Often new innovations come just from asking, from observing, from engaging. Greener events, translation, accessibility, online access to content, expanded social media usage are all in response in some way or another to expressed and desired changes among and from your audience. But people don't always know what they want. They cannot always imagine the options available to them. Imagine Henry Ford or Thomas Edison asking people what they wanted before the car, before the light bulb. What they would hear is, I want a faster horse. I want a candle that will burn longer. And that takes us to number 4. The reasons we innovate is because there's a problem to be solved, or a problem to be prevented, or something that could be improved, or a new future that somebody can imagine. Great ideas come from matching the right solution to the right problem. Solutions without problems are as problematic as problems without solutions. I tend to see a lot of solutions without problems. They're called bright, shiny objects. A recent favorite solution of mine to a problem is the bunch of balloons. I don't know if anyone's seen this. It's a Kickstarter project. If you're not familiar with Kickstarter, that in and of itself is another fringe that is changing the sales cycle. But the bunch of balloons is absolutely a why didn't I think of that innovation. Anyone here ever done a balloon fight? Yeah. It removes the work from the play of water balloons. You can blow up 100 water balloons in 1 minute, and they're already tied and ready to go. Right? You look at who has not said, I should have thought of that. This is easy, right? The story went live on People Magazine's webpage in late July. In 5 days, they had over $250,000 in backing on Kickstarter. They're just about approaching $1 million. Here's a solution to a problem. Eureka. You guys have all played the Eureka game, hopefully, right? Eureka is Greek for I find, I found. Eureka is most associated with Archimedes, who is reported to have yelled it while he was running down the street after discovering the theory of displacement while taking a bath. Now, he was certainly not the first person to ever take a bath. And he was not the first person to see the water rise as his body went into the tub. But he was the first to apply this discovery to practical value and benefits. You see, he had a problem that had been given to him by the king that he needed to solve. The problem was to prove that the new crown that the king had made was actually made of solid gold, the gold the king had provided to the crown maker, rather than of a cheaper filler material. And what turned out, after Archimedes discovered the theory of displacement and measured the crown, that the crown hadn't been made of the gold that had been provided, and the craftsman was actually executed by the king. So invention happens every day in thousands of ways. So if during this presentation, if during the last 3 days you've had a moment of discovery and you feel the urge, yell it out. Eureka! There you go, there's one. Maybe we'll get a few more. So as we look at all this, at the core of innovation is a framework of both discovery and invention. Discovery is about observation, exploring, and applying those to the problem at hand. Like Archimedes, Newton observed the falling apple, and from there the theory of gravity was formed. He didn't invent gravity. He wasn't the first to ever see an apple fall. But he was able to observe that, discover that, and apply it to the problem he was facing. Invention, on the other hand, is engineering or development of something unique and new. Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, the phonograph, and many, many other things, yet he did not discover electricity. These two core activities, discovery and invention, are complementary and often commingle, yet they are different things. For instance, Stephanie Kolek made an important discovery in liquid crystalline polymers, which she turned into the invention of Kevlar, the bulletproof vest. While discovery may be easier and something we do every day, discovery actually makes invention easier as well. But both are muscles. Both are activities that require usage to be fully put to work. Placing yourself in situations such as this conference, where you are able to make these kinds of discoveries, share them, and invent from them, is exactly the way in which that muscle is fed. Innovation comes from applying these discoveries and inventions. And there's 4 ways in which we apply these discoveries and inventions to innovate. The first is incremental, where a small step is taken to improve upon the inventions or the innovations of older, to improve or prevent or to solve a problem. The plow has been around for thousands and thousands of years. It started as nothing more than a stick dragged through the dirt. It was discovered that a stick would create a trough in which you could drop the seeds. However, over time, additional discoveries and inventions have advanced the plow by replacing or placing several innovations together. Manpower was replaced with horsepower, eventually with engine power, and other elements such as slanted wheels and height adjustments have made plows much different from what they looked like to begin with. These incremental innovations have changed the look and function of the plow, but it remains objectively a stick dragged through the dirt. The next way in which we bring discovery and invention together is additive, where one idea is added to another. Adding a video camera to a car, you get a backup camera. That's obvious, I should have thought of that. Yet it was close to 30 years between the invention of the video camera and the first commercially available car with a backup camera. 30 years. The third way in which we bring discovery and invention together is adaptive innovation. This takes place by breaking one idea and applying it to a slightly different application. The microscope uses concave and convex pieces of glass to magnify the smallest of items. The telescope adopted this technology to make things far away seem closer. And yet, take a guess, there was 100 years between the invention of the microscope and the telescope. The problem of seeing further away didn't come up until 100 years after the problem of seeing closer. And that technology was simply adapted. To our earlier invention of Kevlar. Kevlar was adopted to tennis racket strings, to marching band drum heads, and to bicycle tires, making all of those things stronger and lighter, simply by adopting that technology. And finally, the fourth way in which we bring discovery and invention to innovation is quantum innovation. And this is where an entirely new realm of existence comes into play. Think of the printing press, think of the personal computer, think of space travel. As with all of the elements, discovery and invention, incremental, additive, adaptive, and quantum, they coexist and they should be used together to both understand innovation and to help drive innovation, large and small. But where can we innovate? What elements of our lives can be transformed? Well, technology is often thought of as the place to innovate. It is as impactful, maybe more so, to innovate in other areas, such as culturally and socially, politically and organizationally, and economically. One of the more popular social cultural trends today is gamification. You've had that experience here with the Eureka Moments. The introduction of game elements such as badges, points, accomplishment, recognition are all elements of social interaction and culture. While there may be technology used to capture that information, to track it, to share it, to measure it, the core innovation is the activation of social hierarchy and recognition to stimulate the desired outcome, ranging from working out more to filling in a survey. This is an adaptive innovation, as badges and rewards and recognitions have been around for hundreds of years. Just look at your local Scout team, who has a whole set of badges for accomplishment, or look at the military, who have been using badges for representation and recognition for thousands of years. Political and organizational innovation is more about the inner workings of the team and of individuals. Unconferences are an example of this. The attendees, rather than the hosts, determine the content by way of a democratic process. And economic innovation can touch both sides of the budget, not just spend, but also revenue. Once again, social, technical, economic, and political realms coexist and can and should be used to both categorize innovation and to simultaneously stimulate it. So a couple of examples. One example from the economic innovation is the Plus Pass. This is something that Microsoft has started using recently at some of our shows and trials and are expanding upon, and we know other organizations are using these much more actively. The idea behind the Plus Pass was to package a series of valuable access and experiences for attendees, including things like nearby hotels, reserved seating and keynotes, private lounge for the Plus Pass members to use, and other things. It was available in a limited quantity. It was 20% more expensive than a regular access pass, and yet it sold out in less than 10 weeks, with 20% of all registrants at the time it sold out opting to pay more for this package of experiences. After the event, over 90% of the people who had paid more for this Plus Pass were going to do it again or recommend it to others. And what we found was that satisfaction of the event was even higher among this group than it was among the group as a whole. So it not only created higher satisfaction and a really high reuse rate, but it added revenue for the event itself. The innovation was heavily an economic innovation: pricing, limited edition, option to buy, et cetera. It not only solved specific problems, it created a new future. Folks are now willing to recommend this. They want it. It added value to the attendee experience, and it added revenue to the bottom line. But the Plus Pass is also an example of discovery. The initial idea came from looking at, exploring, and discovering how sporting events, concerts, airlines, and other live programs charged for participation. We saw tiered, custom, limited, and packaged offerings becoming the norm in all of these moments. And from there, we invented the package that was relevant and valuable to our attendees. Once again, these are not standalone elements. They're meant to be used together. Another example, maximizing space. Micro apartments, typically under 500 square feet, are becoming popular. They're influenced by economic, social, and technical elements. High rents in desired markets have driven the cultural exercise of determining just how little space one needs in their home to live. It reduces price, and it allows people to stay in desired locations and neighborhoods. Technology assists in this by shrinking the space needs, positively impacting the costs. But the blend of the new social acceptance, the new economic offering, and the new technology results in a new norm. Events now are being asked a similar question. What is the minimum space I can hold this event in? What's the least space that I need to hold this event? And answering this allows for more venue options, it allows for reduced costs, and it may trigger other experience innovations to enable this outcome. And a final example of social and economic is the instant discount for social media mentions. Now, this is one that's relatively recent, I find really interesting. Event organizers are offering instant discounts, $10, maybe as high as $100, during the registration process to people willing to post on their social media channels a pre-created post stating that they're attending the event. Recognizing the importance of word of mouth and using economic incentives to drive it, this shifts marketing spend to incentive spend, motivates the attendees, adds relevant buzz, and has been having some really strong results. So I think this is one we'll see more and more of. In closing, eureka moments and innovation can come from anywhere. They can come from anyone. They can come big or small. They can be incremental. They can be quantum. They can be social, technical, economic, and/or political. But innovation is a muscle that needs to be worked to grow. As such, I offer a few paradigms and a few emerging new norms to stimulate your thinking. The paradigm: change your question. Don't ask, can we? Ask, how can we? Ask, what are the problems I need to solve? Ask, what is the future and how do I make it? And finally, what part of your program just can't change? Now change it. If for no other reason than to build your innovation muscle. You may not implement that change, but if it is not changeable, trust me, it will be changed eventually. Check out Janus Dialogues for more information around that. So here are the new norms that I see emerging that I think are going to affect everybody in the events and experience industry as well as the broader society. Everything is being digitized. Everything. Not just media, not just productivity, not just documents and spreadsheets, everything. Processes, lives, thoughts are being digitized. We are now digitizing driving. We are digitizing currency, not the transmission of currency and payments, but literally currency itself. You won't carry money any longer. It will be digitized. We are digitizing body parts. Life itself is being digitally logged to be monitored in real time and preserved forever. How many folks carry some kind of Fitbit tracker or something of that sort? Yeah, you're all digitally logging your life as you go. Let me share just one example of how the spoken word, not the written word, the spoken word is being digitized.
The problem of having a machine understand human speech has been around in research for a very long time. But now at Microsoft, we are on the verge of having a tool available to all that allows us to speak universally with anyone on the planet. For over a decade, we tried to develop the means for improving speech recognition using Gaussian mixture models. All of that changed when our researchers got together and decided to take a new look at the use of deep neural nets applied to speech recognition, now the new gold standard in speech. Research is a long game. By getting smarter every day and sticking with and understanding the value of basic research, we eventually get to a point where wonderful things can happen. Imagine being able to speak in German and have your message conveyed grammatically and semantically correct in English. That future is here. With a Skype translator, it all starts just as with any other Skype call. You just call someone. But now the difference is the person you're calling doesn't have to speak your language.
Die ich dir gestern geschickt habe.
But I wanted to talk to you about the email that I sent you yesterday.
Brauchst du noch irgendwelche Änderungen?
Do you need any changes?
There was one thing though. Could you change the green to a lighter shade?
Könnten Sie das Grün durch einen helleren Farbton ändern?
Ja, wir können das Grün viel heller machen.
Yes, we can make the green much brighter.
Ich sende dir heute Abend eine neue Datei.
I'm sending you a new file tonight.
That sounds great. I look forward to it.
Das klingt toll.
With a Skype translator, it's a full human-to-human interaction that crosses the language barrier. It's truly a magical experience.
So if you don't believe this will change your world, the translators during keynotes will now be replaced by this. To your mobile device. Now this is not a product available yet, it will be at some point, but I wanted to share it as an example of how everything is being digitized. The second big trend that I'm seeing is additive and subtractive manufacturing. While 3D printing is the poster child for this point by point by point assembly or removal process is changing the way and the places that we make things. Powered by the digitization of everything, we're now able to make things on demand, personalized, and anywhere. This will be the next industrial revolution. The third trend, protest. While it may seem like this has always been around, the social acceptance of protest, Occupy Wall Street and many other activities, has had a real impact on experience marketing and on events. And if you followed the activities recently in San Francisco with the Google event, this will increase and increasingly become the norm. Or it won't. The success of such protests in time will determine whether this fringe activity at the moment becomes the norm. If it becomes the norm, as event organizers, we have another very large thing to keep into account as we're putting our event plans together. The fourth new trend we're seeing, user-generated content. While content development and distribution were once the domain of leading publications and news outlets, today anyone can reach the world online with a blog, with a video, with social media, and with their thoughts, whether they're good thoughts or bad. I have with Janus Dialogues the same distribution ability as the BBC, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal. That didn't exist a few years ago. The world is shrinking at an exponential pace. Event hosts, enterprises, and organizations are no longer the sole source or the best source for the largest amount of content. Ask yourselves, how hard would it be for your fans, your audience, your customers to develop a week's worth of content on their own and put on their own event? And would that be a good thing or a bad thing? Should you be encouraging that, or should you be resisting that? And finally, the fifth trend, attention spans are getting shorter. Our attention spans are getting really short. One article recently put the human attention span at 8 seconds. That's 1 second shorter than goldfish. Eureka. Spotify, the music streaming service, analyzed listening habits and found nearly 25% of all songs get skipped within 5 seconds of starting. More than a third are skipped within 30 seconds, and a full half are skipped before the song ends. The musicians spent a lot of time saying this is how long it should be. We don't listen to the full song any longer. Equally interesting and troubling is that much of the skipping is taking place when we're actively listening, not when the music is just in the background. So active participation now equates with a greater willingness to turn off content rather than take it all in and tune in. And since I've run more than 8 seconds, it is very likely that I've run past your attention span. Before you skip to the next track, I'd like to say thank you for your time. I hope you had a great conference. I hope you discovered Eureka. Thank you very much.
Brilliant, thank you.